All right, so welcome. It is our very first PD Day of the year, and we are super excited. We are going to start it off fabulously wonderful. First, we want to thank you all for being here. We want to thank UNR for hosting us. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. We are going to bring up Dr. Donald Easton Brooks to welcome us and to say a couple of words for us before we get started, and then I will come back and introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Come on, teachers, soon-to-be teachers. How are you all this morning? Well, I want you, the front row is kind of lively. I see why you call them your favorite now. They got some energy up here. I want to thank you all for coming here this morning, Saturday, early, right? This is going to be well worth it. Trust me, it'll be well worth it. So I want to take this time to say, first, thank you for your thoughts about either teaching or being a teacher. This is one of the most exciting things you will ever do. Sometimes in the classroom it might not feel like it, but trust me, it will be. I taught some years ago. I don't want to put a number on it. And I think about the work that I do now as a dean. I think about when I was a professor. I think about the research I do. But the thing that I miss more than anything else is being in the classroom. I was a kindergarten special ed teacher. Loved it. Adams 50 in Denver. That's where Margarita is. And I loved it. One of the things that I really enjoyed and loved about it was helping families and parents to understand how to advocate for their children, help them understand the learning process, and help them understand how to navigate the system. And oftentimes we think about what happens just in that classroom and just what's going on in that classroom and not that external piece of what happens in the classroom. So one of the things that we know through research is that schools and teachers account for upwards of probably 10% of the growth and learning of children. That means 90+% of the growth of learning in children happens outside of the classroom. Family situation, parents, community, poverty, etc. And as we think about those things and engage in those things, that means that if we don't engage with the whole child, including families, we're missing an opportunity to extend that to 15, 20%, etc., and really make a difference and connect. When I say that 10%, one of the things that we do know in research is this. The more diverse a school is, the more that percentage increases to more like 18 to 25%. And what happens is that you have people that are able to engage with the populations that are in schools and have conversations with their other teachers, have conversations with parents, again, about that advocacy. And so it's important. So when you think about your classroom and think about teaching, think about that whole child. Think about how do you increase that 10% to 20, 25%. If you hit 50%, that's great. And when you think about even your experience in schools, you can think about that favorite teacher, right? And that favorite teacher was one that saw you beyond that student, beyond that classroom, but engaged with you in multiple ways. That teacher increased that 10% to 20, 30% because you were invested in engaging that teacher because that teacher was invested and engaged in you. So think about this as you move along this journey and you engage in this journey. This week, I wish you could have been here a couple of days earlier. We had a math education conference in which we had about 200, maybe a lot more than that. Where's Eleni? She could tell me. But anyway, something like that. Math ed people from across the globe here talking about how do we enhance math education. And they did it through an equity lens, which I thought was pretty cool. Very exciting. But we have Margarita, so we'll make up for it today, right? Yeah, we'll make up for it today. I'm glad you are here. But those kind of things, when you get an opportunity to engage in those things, make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. Anything that you can do to enhance your ability not just to be in the classroom, but to connect with students beyond the curriculum is going to be critical and it's going to be important. All right? So again, welcome. I am so sad for you, those of you who are from Vegas. I'm so sad that we could not get the temperature up to 90, 100 degrees. But hang in there, you'll be home soon. All right? Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for that welcome. And it is a perfect segue into an introduction of our speaker today. It is a distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Margarita Bianco. She is a professor at, I always say it wrong, University of Colorado, Denver. It messes me up because it's CU, but it's University of Colorado. I'm like, but she spends a great deal of her time and a great deal of her career advocating exactly for what Dr. Eastonbrooks just talked about. The whole student and helping those who are underrepresented and helping to diversify the teacher force. And that is where her heart lies. I am so excited for her to be able to share with you all the importance of that and some ways on how to do that and why it matters so much. I'm sure in many ways it's preaching to the choir, but it's an honor to hear someone with her background, her accolades, and her prestige tell us why we need to do the things that we already kind of know we need to do. So I don't have much more that I can say about Dr. Bianco, but it is a distinct pleasure and an honor for all of us to hear her speak today.
Thank you so much. I think I've got the, can you hear me okay? Is the mic working? Good, awesome. First I want to say thank you for spending your Saturday morning with me. I appreciate your time. We're all busy, so the fact that you're here. Folks that are live stream, hello. Thank you also for joining. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation from my colleagues here in Reno and in Vegas. And the one thing that energizes me more than anything is to be in a room full of educators and pre-educators and paraprofessionals. So this is my jam right here. I love it. Before we start, I do want to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement. So I acknowledge the, hold on, let me find it. I just had it here. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and other communities who may not be here today. I think that's important. The other thing I want to say before we get started is today is an interactive presentation. So I think you were already instructed to take your phone, tablets, sign on to menti.com and enter that code that you see at the top. And I do want to let you know that I have it programmed so that if you're not interactive, your phone is going to start beeping. I'm only kidding. That's not true. So make sure that you interact. Some of the slides just have you to be able to click like or heart. Other slides, I have questions that I'm going to have you type in some answers. So I can see we've got a bunch of people that are just click to let me know you're on and we're good. The title of my talk today is Teaching for Social Justice, Being and Becoming Critically Conscious Educators. All right, this is a really important topic for me. And you'll learn a little bit more about me and my work and how I want to really encourage you to all become not just experts in your content area, but to be social justice advocates and social justice warriors in your school. There is no better time to become a teacher, and we'll talk about why that's true. If you haven't been able to get on yet, you can also use that QR code, but make sure that you're getting on. Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to talk about this morning, and you're going to meet some of my former students, is that we all have a story. We all have a journey story. And how can we use our journey story to inform our practice as educators? How can we use our journey stories to really become social justice advocates in our schools? So my story and my work influences all that I do. So I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. I identify as multiracial, Puerto Rican, Boricua, Indigenous, Taino, Latina. That's a lot of identities that I have here. Any other Puerto Ricans in the room by any chance? No, I'm not surprised. Okay. I almost dropped out of high school numerous times, and you'll learn a little bit about why that's true. But as a woman of color, as a Latina, I was going to a predominantly white high school. I was not welcome there. I didn't feel welcomed in that space, and so school was not an exciting place for me to be. So it's surprising that I'm a teacher, right? I had a high school counselor tell me that I was not college material, and you're going to learn about him in just a minute, too. I also walked away from a full ride scholarship at Columbia University after my first year. And I don't talk about that too much, but know that, here I was in this really prestigious university for graduate school, had a full ride scholarship, and I left because of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome making me feel, and the climate there made me feel like I shouldn't be there, right? It's a different place today, I think, but in 1980, I was one of only a handful of students of color there. From K through 12, I had 0 teachers of color, not one, okay? So this is all informing the work that I do now. The only women that I saw in school who looked like me from K to 12 were either serving food in the cafeteria or cleaning the bathrooms. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with those jobs. Those are honest jobs that people need to have. But in terms of seeing people of authority and knowledge and power, I didn't see any principals or teachers or superintendents or counselors that looked like me or anybody in my family. And this is true for a lot of young people today, too, so this isn't too different when we consider that over 83% of the teaching population right now nationally is mostly white, mostly female, and mostly monolingual English speakers. So it's very possible for kids to go through school and never see a person of color in the classroom. I became a teacher so that I could be the teacher I never had. This is also not an uncommon story for many faculty of color. So we become a teacher to be that social justice advocate and make some changes. Now you see that picture of that gentleman? His name is Mr. Benet, and that really is the person who told me that I was not college material. I say his name because if he had the audacity to tell me that I wasn't college material, then he needs to be called out for his words too. So he called me into his office in my senior year to tell me I wasn't college material and I should start thinking about technical schools. So, in spite of Mr. Benet, I graduated from college with honors. I was accepted to the most prestigious and nationally competitive programs for graduate school. My research, my teaching, my service has all been recognized with national awards, state awards, and university-wide awards. I was named one of the 35 most influential women in the country making a difference in higher education. And despite Mr. Benet's comments, this is my 50th year as an educator. That's right. So this message, Mr. Benet is actually still alive. And so there is possibility he might see this, and I might send him the link so that he can see it. Hello, Mr. Benet. Mr. Benet, Dr. Bianco says thank you. Whoops, let's see, next slide. Oops, this one's not working now. I might need help getting this to, let's see. Oh, there we go, I think. Okay, there we go. Yep, we got it. So, no individual should ever be motivated to succeed in order to prove somebody wrong. And again, this is a story that I hear from young people all the time. My counselor told me this. My parents didn't believe in me. My family didn't believe in me. That's not usually the case about families and parents. It's mostly about teachers in school that have made comments where students don't feel like they are motivated to succeed. So lots of people do this to prove somebody wrong. So my journey story has influenced my work. My work is around educator diversity. My work is around teaching for social justice. Most of my work is around developing high school grow your own programs, to encourage young people to become teachers, and to think of teaching as an act of social justice. And that's going to be the focus of the talk today. I want to increase the educator diversity workforce by encouraging young students to become teachers. Sometimes this is a hard sell, but we're going to talk about why it shouldn't be. We all have a journey. We all have a journey story that influences our work. So I want you to share with me what yours is. So I want you to think about your identities, your challenges, your celebrations. What contributes to your journey story, and what can contribute to you to be a social justice advocate in your schools? Think about first gen, BIPOC, experiences with racism. What are things that might motivate you? And now I want you to type in your responses, and we'll have a word cloud to show them. More first gen, yay. Is it not showing?
It is projecting, but not on the whole screen, so maybe
Oh.
we do that.
Let's see. This one here?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, look at this. We've got lots. Child immigrant, first gen, multilingual, LGBTQ. Awesome. Experienced racism. All of these identities and all of these experiences, you need to tap to encourage you and to help your journey story make you a social justice and a critically conscious teacher. And we're going to talk about how that happens. Oh, this is amazing. Look at this. I love it. First gen. We have lots of first gen folks. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on. That's amazing. Okay, so what is teaching for social justice? So teachers, teaching, and learning are under attack right now. Yet, I'm going to tell you and share with you that there's no better time to become a teacher who's ready to teach for social justice, okay? Think about all the attacks that we're under. This week is Banned Book Week, and today, in fact, is Let Freedom Read Day. So when we think about the book bans that are happening around the country and how that impacts us as teachers and how it impacts students as learners and the information that we're trying to keep from them, think about what are some other examples throughout the country where teachers, teaching, and learning are under attack. So think about Florida, think about Texas, think about P12 and higher ed. What are ways that we're under attack? Type in your responses. Unemployment rates, okay. Wage. Lack of information. Don't say gay laws, absolutely. Firing teachers, censored curriculum, yes. Think about DEI laws. So my higher ed folks in here, what are some, we're not allowed to have conversations about race. Think of how we've killed affirmative action. All of these reasons are actually reasons that people will say they don't want to become a teacher. And I'm saying to you, and I want you to share with your colleagues, that all of these reasons are the exact reasons to become a teacher. Because we need people there to fight for justice within the education system. Because if we walk away and say we don't want to deal with it, then what are we leaving the education system to do? So social justice pedagogies are really built around the critical pedagogy of Paulo Freire, who saw education as the practice of freedom. And for those of you who might not be familiar, he was a philosopher, educator, and one of the founders of critical pedagogy. So just for my own knowledge, how many of you are familiar with Paulo Freire's work? So not at all, expert, a little bit familiar. I just want to get an idea of who's in the audience. Okay, so most people right now not at all familiar with his work. That's okay, because you're going to get a little familiar with his work today, and hopefully that's going to motivate you to learn. And the first book you should read is Pedagogy of the Oppressed, so make a note of that. So when we teach from a social justice paradigm, we're making a commitment to instruct in a revolutionary fashion. That might sound scary, but it's not. We place students, their lives, their voices, their perspectives, their cultural backgrounds are going to be at the center of teaching and learning. When you're using a critical pedagogy framework, you're sharing your power and your space and your voice with your students. So you're admitting that you're not always the expert, right? We're going to share that expertise with our students. You're going to guide students to become civically engaged, intellectually critical, and socially conscious. If we did more of that in schools today, we wouldn't be in such a political divided nation, I think, if we allowed students to really learn how to be critically and socially conscious. And students engage in social action, so they want to do something, and you teach them how to do something. So by you becoming a critically conscious educator, you're helping your students become critically conscious individuals. So Freire believed that the primary goal of education should be to engage students from oppressed groups in learning to decode and challenge their social conditions. So a critically conscious educator, so being critically conscious means you're reflecting and you're learning on an issue, right? You're really understanding the issue, and you're taking action on that issue to transform it, and that's what we call praxis. So if you think about even the banned books, okay, so what would you do with your students and yourself? Learn the history of why we're banning the books. Really understand what are the motivations behind banning these books. Reflect on it, learn about it. Then you have to believe that you have some agency and action to change it, and then you do something to change it. It might be a protest. It might be buying all those banned books and leaving them in places where your students might still have access to them, despite what school policy is. And we'll talk about those fears too. But anyway, so that's the critical pedagogy cycle. So again, by you becoming critically conscious educator, you're going to teach your students to become critically conscious individuals. This is one of my favorite quotes by Paulo Freire. As long as the oppressed remain unaware of the causes of the condition, they fatalistically accept their exploitation. So think about that for a minute. And I'm going to give you just a really quick example. So, how many students go to school each day, walk through metal detectors, have their belongings taken from them and searched, and have no idea why this is happening? This experience is so normalized that they believe it's a commonplace experience in high schools around the country. They're unaware of the conditions and they accept it as normal. I'll give you a quick story. I was visiting schools in Newark, New Jersey last year. One school I went to, no metal detector, it was fine. A 5-minute walk from that school went to another high school, and it was so dehumanizing. Everybody who walks through the building had to go through this metal detector, right? They took my purse, they took my briefcase, they searched it, I had to, they did a pat down, then I had to walk through a metal detector. And I thought, oh my God, kids are experiencing this every day when they walk in the building. It was really a dehumanizing experience. I met with 150 kids that day in an auditorium like this, and I asked them, because one of the things, and don't, forgive my language here, but I always start when I talk to high school kids about what's pissing them off, right? What are the things in school that are really upsetting them? They talked about everything, different issues, not enough clubs, not enough money to do this. Not one student in 15 minutes said that they had metal detectors and that bothered them. And when I brought this to their attention, they were surprised, and they just assumed that the high schools all around them had metal detectors. So that was a perfect example of how they've normalized a system of oppression. There might be good reasons for them to have metal detectors, but they didn't know them, and I certainly didn't. So one of the things that came out of this conversation was to learn more about why and maybe get it changed. So that's just an example of how you accept a situation that's oppressive to you. Freire described critical consciousness as a powerful tool for transformation by motivating individuals to combat oppression, violence, and dehumanization within their communities, right? So how? I'm going to give you some examples of some students. You're going to see some videos here in a minute. So we're going to take some real life examples. Here's just a really simple way that you can think about what you can do with your students to enact some critical pedagogy and get them activated to think about systems that might be oppressive for them. Stage one is the social analysis, and that means that you have to understand whatever it is that issue that you want to learn more about and change. So whether it's metal detectors, whether it's banned books, whether it's you don't have unisex bathrooms in your school, whatever the issue is, first you have to learn about it, right? Research it. The next part is political agency. You have to help your students believe that they have the power to do some changing in their school or in their community, right? In Denver, Colorado, we have huge issues with gentrification. And so as a result, kids and families are being moved out of communities, and that's really upsetting to them. So gentrification is one aspect that students do a lot of research around. So then we have to give them the agency, let them know they have the potential to change things. And the last part, which is the most important part, is the social action. They need to take some change. They need to do something in order to make that change. Maybe it's a petition, maybe it's a protest, maybe it's a request to speak in front of the board, the school board. Maybe it's a request to meet with the superintendent of schools. Whatever it is, they need to attempt to change this situation. So you got it, those three pieces of it? Whoops. Oh, here we go again. I can't move it. Okay, I might need help. I got it. Okay, so here are some students that I worked with in 2010 or 11. These were young men at Montbello High School. Dr. Easton Brooks is familiar with that community in Montbello. So we have a number of young people. They engaged in these research projects. And first we're going to meet Luke. So Luke, he used his journey story to impact change in his community. He was the first student in my Pathways to Teaching program in 2010. And as a senior, he had a GPA of 1.2. He was in foster care since the age of 11. He had 5 different foster care homes by the time he was in high school. He also spent 2 or 3 years in what was considered to be a short-term foster care placement, but it was like, almost looked like a jail. I mean, it literally was a lockdown facility. You're only supposed to be there for a few weeks until you get placed with a foster family. He was there for 2 or 3 years and he talked about his experience in terms of getting education. There was none. There was no dedicated teacher. They had a teacher's aide or somebody come in and give kids worksheets. So that's what he did for his middle school years. So he blames his 1.2 GPA on the fact that he wasn't in school, right? So he was frustrated by his low GPA. He felt that the school system and the teachers did not understand his emotional, psychological, and physical needs and the academic support that he needed because of his foster care experience. So now we're going to listen to him.
I'm interested in becoming a teacher because I feel like I can connect with students better, and I understand all the experiences that they might go through. My research topic is foster care in the education system. I feel like I chose that topic because I am in foster care and I know all the experiences, and I feel like there's things that teachers don't know that they do need to know. And also, I feel like I haven't always had the proper help that I needed. So teachers need to know more about that. Well, I would like to sit down individually with children, foster children, and really hear their minds. And they give me input on what they would like to see happen. For my career path, I plan to pursue a PhD degree. I feel like if I get a PhD degree, a lot more people will listen to what you have to say. I feel like there's an authority that comes with getting a PhD degree, and a lot more people will listen. And I can connect with a lot more teachers that way, and I can go speak with them at their schools and conferences and stuff like that.
So Luke expressed interest in studying foster care, and he wanted to make some changes around what teachers know and needed to know. So this is actually a screenshot of an email that I got from Luke, and the timestamp was like 1:20 or 2 in the morning or something. He made a list of all the things. He was really invested in doing this. He made a list of all the things that he thought teachers needed to know. I'll just read one or two. Teachers need to develop good relationships with foster students. Teachers just don't take enough time to interact with foster children and show them that they care and what they know. What's another one? Schools need to provide sessions that involve teachers and foster organizations and workshops. So he just created this amazing list of all the things that he thought teachers and schools need to know about kids in foster care. Here was part of his survey that he developed to send out to school teachers and to faculty, actually. So check your role, what's your overall knowledge of the foster care system, your overall knowledge of the academic, social, emotional needs of students in the foster care system. So it was like a 10 or 15 question survey, and we had 150 responses from teachers around the district. And then I said, let's talk to faculty too, because the professors are the ones that are going to be instructing pre-service teachers around foster care. So we had some professors at CU Denver respond as well. So just briefly, and I'm doing this for Luke because one of the things he made me promise was that I would always talk about foster care to get people involved. So how familiar are you with the foster system, how it works, who qualifies, the needs of students in foster care? Okay, so far 62 people are saying somewhat familiar. 48 are saying not at all. Okay, so faculty in the room, this is something we need to start talking about, putting it on your syllabus, okay? How many hours of your college classes have been dedicated to discussing the needs of foster care? Again, I'm doing this on behalf of Luke. Okay, 55 people are saying, 66 people, 71 people are saying 0. 87. Okay, this is a message for you all, right? And CU Denver, we do this now only because of Luke's research, because before that, we didn't have anybody who would talk about foster care too. So I did a little bit of homework. So that right now, there are approximately 3,400 children at any given day in Clark County foster care system. And right now, one of the biggest needs is in rural Nevada, where we have a number of foster children, but not enough foster care placements. So it's an issue here in the state. And so just pay attention to it, and then make sure that your professors are going to start talking about what's the process for foster care, and what can you do as an educator to help students. So Luke was super proud. He got his data, what he thought was validated, because the survey results showed exactly what you said just now. Teachers didn't know about foster care, and none of the professors were teaching it. So that was actually the first time Luke ever wore a suit, and that was the first time he ever had a tie, and he was so proud of his badge that said he was the researcher, and it was a really amazing day. But now, go back to those 3 steps, right? So the social analysis was that whole learning about foster care and what teachers need to do and know. The political agency was he started to believe he could make a difference. And the social action was presenting his research and actually making a difference at CU Denver in particular. After his research presentation, the faculty that saw it and the students that engaged with him started to say, okay, we need more information about this. So CU Denver created a page around resources for teachers, and we started having conversations about embedding this in our course curriculum. So he made that change, that social action was there. And that young man, see the young man with the turquoise shirt? That's Alfonso. I don't have his story here, but he was always like the best dresser in school, and he's the one that helped Luke put his tie on that day. It was really sweet. Okay, Greg was also in that picture. So Greg also had a story. Greg was in kinship care, which is part of foster care. Raise your hand if you know what kinship care is. Okay, kinship care is when you're living with family or friends or neighbors that'll take care of you. You're still part of the foster care system, but not in a foster care home. You're living with a family member. So he was raised by several family members, and at the age of 9, he wrote a suicide letter to his mother. He has shared the suicide letter with me. It was really very sad. Talked about wanting to make sure that his mother would take care of his dog. His mother had substance abuse problems and was on and off unhoused. His father was in prison. I think his father was imprisoned when Greg was about a month old. And so he had very little interaction with his biological dad. His dad was released from prison in time to attend Greg's high school graduation, but was killed in gang-related activity 2 years later. Greg is smart, popular, he's definitely a leader, but he also lives with deep sadness. I'm still in touch with him now. I'm still in touch with Luke, too. This is 13 years later. Greg was really frustrated by the gang activity in Montbello community in Denver. He was frustrated by the substance abuse in his community. His 2 older brothers were also had substance abuse problems and was gang involved. His mother had some mental health issues, and also his brother and his father. So his whole family, his whole life journey, his journey story was impacted by these issues. So Greg decided for his research project, he was going to study what are the effects of a positive peer support thing. So we have lots of information about negative peer pressure, but what happens if you have organizations that are going to encourage you to become part of a positive peer support? So that was his research topic. Greg got lots of attention again for his research topic. He was interviewed by the news. And as years progressed, he developed a whole organization called DNA, Denver Not Alone. He founded this program. The Denver Post wrote stories about him. After high school graduation, he really built this organization around positive peer pressure. And I think the next slide is a video. Yep, so this is a news video about his work.
There are certain years in our lives that define our stories.
Middle school can change you, along with high school can change you as well.
And on certain days,
step to the line if you've ever felt alone.
There are certain moments that challenge us to step out so others can understand those stories.
Cross the line if you or someone you know has been bullied.
This exercise is called the line game, a chance for students to share with their classmates about the incredible circumstances they face outside of school, when their faces may suggest otherwise.
If you have a sibling that has passed away,
the questions are difficult, but there is careful intention in teaching within these moments. From Greg McCoy.
Lets you acknowledge your past, but you get a better glimpse of what your future could be.
McCoy manages restorative practices at neighboring high school Collegiate Prep Academy. He developed a program called DNA, or Denver's Not Alone, in response to significant social, emotional, and racial conflict at his school.
For a lot of the kids, it's taught to hide your feelings, it's taught to hide who you are as a person, but you have to be able to at some point let it go so that you could succeed.
On this day,
if you're a senior, if you're a freshman, it doesn't matter who you are.
It means creating a safe space for students to share who they are.
We're allowing our kids to fail so much because of their stories.
DNA is about understanding your past may be difficult, but it shouldn't define your future.
It brought up memories to me that I had from way back when.
For sophomore Kayla Hines, Those memories include family brokenness. DNA gives perspective on how far she's come to change her family's story.
And I felt like if they could see me now, they'd be very proud of me for what I've been doing.
The program is changing the way students relate to one another.
One of the things I want to challenge myself to do is be part of y'all's life more.
I know that if I see somebody that is going through what I once did, I can go and help them.
I want to always show love in the best way that I can.
And we're learning from each other versus, okay, you look this way and I look this way, so we should probably be separate. Now we're saying, I want to get to know you more because you look different from me.
Vulnerability is a tough thing. As the day concludes, students tie knots to make a promise that they'll do anything to make this a safe place every day.
And how to be yourself instead of trying to impress everyone around you.
Something that brings understanding, friendship, support, things that change lives forever.
It feels amazing to just give back to my community.
For DPS Features, I'm Ben McKee.
So again, you see that whole cycle from looking at your own life story, what you need to do, what you need to learn about, and then to enact change. How am I doing on time? How am I doing on time? What do I have, another 10 minutes or so? Okay. All right, well, I'm going to keep going here. Oh, okay. All right, I'm good. All right, so again, the experience, learning the experience, doing some political agency, and then the social action. So you could see by him developing this program, he's really impacting his community. And I'll give you a quick update. So I talked to Greg a couple of days ago. For a long time, he worked as a paraprofessional in Denver Public Schools. He was the dean of restorative justice in one of the high schools, and he's currently a substance abuse counselor with Denver Youth. So we have one more story, and this is Sam. Whoops. Sam experienced homelessness while she was in school. She was basically taking care of her mother, who had some mental health challenges and some substance abuse problems. Sam, super bright, very motivated, but she didn't have a whole lot of direction in terms of knowing what she wanted to do with her life. She developed developing critical consciousness allowed her to see that her lived experiences and her knowledge and her understanding of what being houseless felt like for a young woman, that she could make a difference. And so what you're going to see in the next video is Sam giving her research presentation at the end of her senior year. So this is when students get to share their work. Hi, can you tell me your name?
My name is Samantha Gilman.
And tell me a little bit about your research project.
So my research project is about the academic effects of high school students who are homeless. Some things that I researched is that one of the most vulnerable populations experiencing homelessness is youth and children. Students are experiencing homelessness are at heightened risk for chronic school failure and poor educational outcomes, which means they struggle with completing high school or they don't complete high school at all.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. So why was this important to you?
This was important to me because I relate to it. My freshman year of high school, I was homeless and going through this. So.
Okay. And what was your research question and how does that relate to your experience?
How is academic achievement of high school students affected when students are homeless? This relates to me because if I didn't have the resources that I had at the time, I most likely would not be graduating high school, or I would be struggling to stay current in my high school. So.
And tell me about one of the questions that you had about asking students if they knew what the homeless liaison was.
Yeah, so most people, even teachers actually, I asked if you knew what a homeless liaison, and most people said no. And that's a huge issue because homeless liaisons are connectors for resources inside and outside of school for homeless schools and families.
So earlier you were telling me a little bit about your experience. So tell me what kinds of things the homeless liaison did for you.
So my homeless liaison, she pointed me to resources for transportation. I had to take the public transportation every morning and every night. She gave us bus passes. She also, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, there were presents that anonymous people would donate, food, list of shelters and therapy resources and things like that.
Great. So what did you learn the most from your research project?
The thing I learned most is the fact, basically how important homeless liaisons are. Most people don't know about them, and I feel like if students do know about them, or families would know about homeless liaisons and connect them to resources, they could focus more on graduating high school rather than finding a place to stay or finding somewhere to eat and focus. And so I think that's a huge factor.
Yeah, very good. So now let's celebrate a little bit. How many college credits have you earned this year?
I am graduating high school with 56 college
Oh
credits.
my God, that is
Yes.
amazing.
Thank
Congratulations
you. I appreciate
to you.
that.
And so as a result of doing this project and taking the Pathways class, what are you thinking about pursuing once you get to college?
Dr. Bianca has referred me or told me that I should look into social working and possibly becoming a homeless liaison. And if I do that, my goal is to make homeless liaisons more known within schools so students are more comfortable coming forth with information like that.
And think of all your experience and how
Yes.
you can be helpful for other kids.
Yes,
so.
and I'm hoping to create a more comfortable environment by relating to kids and students and families. Like, hey, I went through this. I know what you're going through. I'm here. You can talk to me, and I will point you to those resources.
Excellent. You did a really good job.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.
So again, you can see that whole cycle of learning and now making a difference. And there's those three aspects again. Okay, so being and becoming a critically conscious educator. I'm hoping that these stories have given you an idea of the kinds of things that you can do in your classrooms. And it doesn't matter what grade you teach, it doesn't matter what subjects you teach, what content area. There are always ways that you can bring your children and your students into thinking about the issues in their community and how they can solve them. This QR code will bring you to a Google folder that I created for you that has a bunch of articles and social justice educator resources. If you're interested, if you can't access it now, I'll make sure that you have it, but I think there are about 15 different resources in there for you, including the social justice standards. So I strongly encourage you to look at the social justice standards. There's actually a link to them on your university website. But look at those standards and figure out how you can use them when you're developing lesson plans, because it talks a lot about critical pedagogy. So in closing, here's one thing I'm going to read for you all. The emphasis in teacher education should go beyond focusing exclusively on excellence and on strengthening intellectual competence. It should also include a passionate commitment to educational equity and to developing critically conscious teachers so they, in turn, develop critically conscious students. Teacher education, this is a message for my colleagues in higher ed. Teacher education has an important role to play in the movement toward a more just and humane society. And there's the quote by my colleagues. So I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate your attention and your interactive presentation with me today. Thank you so much.